to try to, I guess, push that along as well. What do we see next for like those that like if my parents come out and they're staying at a fucking Holiday Inn or a non-weed friendly place, like it's like pulling teeth trying to find a safe way to smoke if you're not just like ghosting your your carts in the hotel room.
100%. I think what we're seeing in Colorado, but other states as well, we're effectively asking people to break the law by not allowing for public consumption. Now, I'm not saying that it needs to be public everywhere, but by not having safe places to consume, it's setting us up for failure. So to answer your question, Denver specifically last November passed Initiative 300. Super amazing. Like it's a big step in the right direction. It's the first state, to actually implement some type of and I guess I'll explain to you what it is. It essentially allows businesses to apply for a license for consumption. You can't have dual licenses, so liquor and cannabis, but they have allowed for people to obtain these licenses in Denver.
Did you lose your train of thought?
Because I was looking at Chris's beautiful face. But yeah, I was just going to say to that point, it is, and very tan, I might add.
Self-tanning lotion's working out.
I'm gonna steal that.
I was just going to say from a social lounge perspective, Initiative 300, although it did pass, the city has made it very difficult for businesses to actually apply for that. So number one, it's really expensive. Number two, it's hard to implement. We are seeing a few folks pop up. Right now, I would say we're still operating in a very gray area. It's very sketchy. It's a place that you would not want to bring your parents, Kip. Okay?
My parents don't want to come visit me, so you're safe in that regard.
Fine, fair enough. Fair enough.
Folks want to come voluntarily hang out with me.
Okay, but hold on 1 second. So I've gone back and forth on the whole social consumption, and I understand the arguments for, and I understand the arguments against. And I know that you're a world traveler.
Yes.
And so I imagine you've probably been to Amsterdam.
I actually have not.
You haven't?
No.
Okay. Well, so I mean, with the whole social consumption, that's the big thing is separating the places that would have a license for social consumption to where you can go into like a bar type thing
or a bookstore or a yoga studio
or bistro or something like that, and you can smoke weed and not have alcohol. I totally would agree with those kind of social consumption. I don't believe you should serve alcohol wherever you are serving weed.
It's a classic case of the spins if I've ever heard one.
Wow. Anyway, I haven't had those in a while. But
Is that a high school throwback for everybody?
In my rookie years when I didn't know about how much weed I could hit when I was drinking, that happened quite frequently, and that was awful.
Prevented a lot of,
Ooh, but terrible. But, it's just, I wonder if that model can really work here, and I think it should. Like, I wouldn't mind walking down the street to say a little coffee shop they are in Amsterdam, where I went in. They have, instead of napkin holders, they have different rolling papers you can use and different filler products, and you can go in there and you can sit down and burn a joint, and they have TVs and stuff, and it actually kind of brings you together with other smokers. So I'm all for that. I think it's going to be a really long and difficult road here.
100%, it's going to be a long road. Right now, the Initiative 300 is just it allows the ability for people to bring their own weed to consume. So I actually don't think it's ever going to be serving weed. There's just there are too many people fighting this around the country. So I think that there's going to have to be a middle ground that we find first before.
We don't have middle ground in politics in America.
Well, no, but you're absolutely right. And I mean, with this current administration, it makes things infinitely more difficult. When going back to consumption, I think that we have to eliminate these stigmas first and foremost. It needs to be legalized either on a federal level or this new States Act that Elizabeth Warren is behind, for example, allowing all states. So federal legalization, but allowing all states to determine.
It's a very libertarian move from Elizabeth Warren, who's usually the antithesis of such. I like that. Because we are obviously Mississippi, Alabama.
Yep.
Coming from a little bit more conservative area, we obviously got out for certain reasons.
Yep.
One of the reasons I got out there was because the cops and like the policies and the people down there. It's never going to happen, you know. But at the same time, like what works for, like in the case of, like you're from Massachusetts with the Mitt Romney healthcare thing, like what's good for Massachusetts may not necessarily work for Mississippi. So why don't you let each state dictate that? And I think we've been a great ambassador for that. You mentioned we are the epicenter, and it makes you wonder about folks like California who fucked it up the first time with their
absolutely. I mean, and it's so I can see both sides of the story. You know, I think that states' rights, that's obviously very, very important. Having said that, there are so many different rules and regulations per state. It's causing chaos. You're seeing some states really excel, and you're seeing some states fail miserably, okay? Cough, cough, Oregon and Washington.
So they've had an oversaturation up there in Oregon to the point where, whereas Nevada's the antithesis from everything I've read kind of in your industry, is they can't keep weed on the shelves. They're doing so well in places like Vegas and Reno. And then you see a lot of flight of people leaving the tech industry or San Fran and moving to Nevada. And I'm kind of hoping they bring a little bit, I don't know exactly how that would cross, paths, but what is the future for like states? Like, are we leaving a good mark on the system, or are people giving it more of a black eye than we are looking better on?
I was going to say, so Colorado obviously being the first to turn was monumental. Washington and Oregon after that, they had Colorado to reference, right? And we weren't doing everything correctly, of course, but people were looking to us. Now, they went off in their own directions, okay? They allowed, right now, they have too many grows, too much weed on the shelves, okay? They had to limit, just recently, they put a 6-month term on how much you could purchase. Before, it was 24 ounces. Now it's down to 1. For 6 months now.
Just to kind of get them to circulate and buy more?
But they had so much weed that it was being pushed into the black market, like immediately. When you can buy 24 ounces of weed legally going into the dispensary,
ton of weed.
That's a ton of weed. That's a ton of weed. Okay, that's asking for like trafficking.
That is
I don't know what it's called.
Nebraska is one of those states that obviously does not agree with the Colorados, the Washingtons, and the Oregons. And they bitch and complain about how we cost tax dollars to their police forces by them arresting so many folks.
But people bringing it over,
That's also that's revenue in some regards. Like, why not get on our side rather than, is it easier to fight it than to just... it seems like it takes more effort to say no and to fight than it would be just to kind of go with the flow and kind of let people in states and cities make their own decisions.
Yeah, I was just going to add that, to that point, we always talk about how the genie has been let out of the bottle. There's no way you can put the genie back in the bottle, right? And so...
Classic toothpaste scenario.
So what do? You have to make the best of the situation. You have to implement rules and regulations that are going to keep the consumer safe, but also provide, we're bringing in millions and millions of tax dollars, okay? It's going towards schools. It's going towards roads in every single state. And so I think if we can retell this story in a more positive light, again, I really hope states take a little more responsibility implementing these rules because some of them are just not, very good.
So in your, so when you were saying, we need to retell this story, what immediately came to my mind is the use of cannabis in pain relief and things like this. So why can't we craft a story about how, I'm not that knowledgeable on CBD oils and rubs and things like that. But with
you are a specialist in rubs. The ladies down on South Federal know all about you.
So we'll deal with that in a later time. But with this kind of opioid crisis and epidemic that our nation is facing, which is drastically different and more devastating than anything marijuana has ever done, can we start to reshape a story about marijuana as an alternative health to these highly addictive drugs for pain relief and things like that? I think that might be an avenue we could explore. And I don't know enough about it to carry that on, but...
That's why we have Sam here.
Exactly.
Here I am. Okay, so... to answer your question...
Multi-tiered, yeah.
No, but that's fine. I think that we've been telling a narrative that speaks more to the recreational market than the medical market. It's the bright, shiny object. It is what is bringing in sales. In 2018, rec use is estimated by the end of this year to be $6.7 billion. Medical, $4.3, right? By 2022, rec is going to be $16 billion, medical, $8 billion, right? So we've been telling this narrative that's been focusing on rec. And what is upsetting people? It's recreational cannabis, right? People do not understand the evolution of this industry and where we have started from and where we have come so far. So when we talk about CBD, when we talk about using cannabis in a different way, I absolutely think it's an important story to tell. And
it seems like it's a great ambassador because it's almost legal in states where obviously marijuana is still, our users and everything else are persecuted for, everything, but like CBD helps, children with epilepsy and things, things of that nature. It's become like, I feel like it is a great, it's like putting Kip on the forefront. It's a great face for your brand. So
I don't know about that.
It's better than Reefer Madness, the movie from the 50s.
That's the thing. And, when we talk about cannatourism, just going back to like what we focus on.
Good circling right
Thank you. It's not just people coming to smoke recreationally. It is people coming with different health issues, coming to Colorado to legally see what products work best for them, right? So from a medical standpoint, wow, there's just so much we can do. And CBD is... It's on obviously the Farm Bill. I don't know if you're familiar with the Farm Bill, but it expires in September 30th, actually. And so this is an amazing opportunity for hemp, for CBD, to be legalized, right? And it would allow us to do research, to grow, to distribute, et cetera. It's going to change the game. That alone, because it's technically a Schedule I drug on the same level as LSD and heroin. To your point, okay? Shaking my head at Kip right now. But, I think if we can deschedule that and we can push legalization for hemp in particular, it will lead to other legislation for actually, for cannabis. I think people, like you said, it's almost bridging the gap. It's easier for people to understand. Obviously, CBD doesn't have a psychoactive effect. It helps. I mean, we hear of stories, kids who have epilepsy or are experiencing 70 to 100 seizures a day, and they're going down to like 3
right
with these certain oils and tinctures.
But on the other hand, you go up to Jeff Sessions and you go, hey, I've got this CBD oil that's helping my child. And, I mean, the guy's going to get a hard on.
That guy sucks so much dick. I can't even vouch. I mean, and that's...
Videos will surface one day.
I can't wait. He is up there with the worst of the worst. But I do want to holler at this notion because I have a friend who lives in Alabama. He's on the conservative side of the aisle, and he does lobbying, and he is very pro-hemp. And he'll even say things, shout out Burrow. He says that there's 2,000 plus uses for hemp that could do everything
100%.
from, let's erase the need for plastic water bottles to fucking
paper,
making gin.
food,
packaging.
Hempcrete is like 10
Big
times.
Oil is a company that they're having to vie against. And then you have Big Pharma who you have to vie against for the CBD. So it's always going to be an uphill battle, especially when it comes to lobbying dollars, until we can get the true notion. Prohibition started for marijuana at the same time of alcohol, but because of movies like Reefer Madness and bullshit propaganda, it's just kind of always, like you said, we've got to change this stigma. And so I want to be the face of the program that changes the stigma. Can we go ahead and vote on that between us three now? I will be the face that changes the stigma of marijuana. Score! Robbie just brought us some heirloom tomatoes. Fuck yes. We're about to eat.
Looks like there might be a little basil in there. I'm digging it.
And a balsamic.
Killed it.
Well done, Robbie! I forgot what we were talking about now. I'm just going to eat.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's always going to be an uphill battle, absolutely. I don't think it's impossible, and I think it will become more mainstream. It's like prohibition, right, with alcohol. I mean, you guys know how that went, and we see the results now. I mean, an influx of craft breweries and distilleries like the one we're at right now, really shaping and changing the game. Cannabis, there is going to be a responsibility for these bigger brands, and when it goes federally legal, for larger companies coming in to push this in the right direction. You got to keep people on the right side of law. You have to make it safe for people to consume, especially from a medical standpoint. You have to provide the resources for these people who are suffering. anything from PTSD like down the line, right? We know
Concussion
that
syndrome, CTE for athletes. I mean, you see football players are trying to get they want to smoke weed instead of eat fucking pills, and they get punished for it.
I mean, so it was actually interesting. So